This is called the lip trill. I'm sure you've probably seen people doing this. You've singers all over the place doing this particular exercise. It's pretty universal, and if you've worked with other vocal coaches, you've probably had an opportunity to do it as well. But let me tell you what my goal is here and what you should be trying to accomplish with this, and the value of doing the lip trill and being able to do it pretty easily. Again, let me review a couple of things. What we're trying to do is to get your body to create sound without too much movement of your larynx or your voice box, either up or down, right? So in order to do that, in order to do the lip trill and actually to be able to access all of your range, your larynx or your voice box needs to stay more relaxed and stable. And then what happens is you get this experience of the sound moving through just the vocal cords creating the sound. Again, if you remember, going to your higher notes, if the larynx stays relaxed, then the vocal cords themselves will start to thin and then shorten, basically. That's a good way to think of it, to get to your higher notes. You may think that in your speaking voice or your regular tone voice, your cords are at their most relaxed place, or your natural voice. But to get to those upper ranges, they need to be able to thin and then shorten or dampen, which is, more the physiological thing that happens to get to those higher notes. So on these exercises, you should always start at a range that's comfortable for you to get. In the beginning, you may have some difficulty in doing these in the lower ranges, but let me show you a few things here. Now, let me stop for a second. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to explain a couple of things. I am using my hands because most times in the very beginning, you will need to use your hands here. And the reason that I'm doing that is that I'm kind of pushing up here very gently so that I don't have a tendency to allow the sound to fall back in my throat, which again will cause the swallowing muscles to come down. The swallowing muscles are the things that we want to get to relax or to stay out of the way. Now, and what you're ultimately trying to experience is where you are moving through your range in a very connected way. Some of you, when you're starting, you may not get the trill to go. You may experience this. It just stops. That's because these swallowing muscles are coming down and you're falling back in your throat. So to correct that, this is one of my crutches that I've talked about before that I use, is that you got to make this really weird face. You make that kind of face, that squint you squint your face, your nose, or whatever, and just feel the sound going up this way a little bit more. As I'm doing that, then my larynx is staying more relaxed. Then the vocal cords are able to do their job, which is to thin or shorten to start to create those higher notes. Let me just go back, and now you'll start to hear that a little bit more. It's going up here. You may need to exaggerate. Explain another thing. Now, I know you've probably heard of terms like head voice, chest voice, middle voice, and all of that, and also falsetto. What I'm trying to avoid, however, is going into a typical falsetto, meaning that that is a false tone where your chords are kind of disconnected and there's just a lot more air going through. What we're always trying to accomplish is where you're able to mix back and forth throughout your entire range in a very easy way. Now, do not try to push as you get to these, to try to get to your higher notes. That really works against you. If you start to feel that the sound is stopping a little bit, or that you can really feel that these muscles are coming down, you'd be better off trying to use less sound, just making it real small. You're retraining your body how to create these notes in a little different way. One more time, a little bit higher, so you can get the idea. Another little trick here is that, you'll start to get this sense, and I've talked about, hearing in your forehead and all of that. But in this one, I'd like for you also to try to get a sense where you are experiencing hearing the sound above your cheeks. The only way that it can stay there, that you can get that experience, is if it's not falling back in your throat. Now, you may not get that in the beginning, but don't worry. As you go through the exercises, as you get through all of them actually, and as you become much more proficient with them, you will start to have that experience. So, but let me just do a little bit more so you can see. And as you're going higher, if you start to disconnect and going into a falsetto, then stop. We want to build more of a mixture through your voice, okay? I'm still connected. Still a little connection. It gets real tiny. And so forth. So I think you kind of get the idea of that. But again, if you start to feel where you're tightening up or trying to push, then stop. You will develop this. You will build over time. You're not going to get all of it, right in the beginning, especially if we are changing some very old habits that you've had. Alrighty, so that should do it for the lip trill. So have fun with that.